Yo, what's going on, Sens and fellow hockey fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Snipe and Sens weekly recap. So, today's episode, we're going to go over what happened in this week's action for the Ottawa Senators, including Game 6 of the season against the Dallas Stars, which was one of the last home games of the homestand that we had. Then also Game 7 of the season against the Minnesota Wild, which was also a home game. And finally, the game that happened just yesterday against the Florida Panthers in Florida. I'm also going to give my overall thoughts and opinions on this week as a whole, and also we're going to take a look at our prospects down in Belleville and in Junior and see how they're doing. And we're going to look ahead at next week and give some predictions. So let's get into the first game of the week, which was against the Dallas Stars, where the Sens prevailed by a score of 4-2. Now, I believe Dallas didn't have any losses going into this game, so the Sens were the first team to hand them a loss, or maybe they were the second, but either way, the Sens knocked out a very good team in the Dallas Stars in this one. Now, this was a pretty interesting game, as before the game, Josh Norris was actually ruled out, obviously, because of his injury he sustained in the game before, and apparently he's going to be out a minimum of 3 months at least, which is really not that great because obviously that does hurt our center depth, so that was a big blow to the team. Derek Brassard would draw into the lineup for him, as well as Magnus Hellberg would draw in for Anton Forsberg, who was a little bit roughed up because of the last game that he played. I guess coming across to try and make a save, he kind of injured himself, so he also missed this game as well. So Hellberg came in, and the Sens called up, I believe, Kevin Mandolese as the backup option. Basically, the Sens lineup was the exact same, except for Derek Brassard drawed in for where Josh Norris was. And then obviously Hellberg was in net for Forsberg. So in the first period, I figured there was a lot of good speed for both teams and good chances. Hellberg actually made some really big saves, including a wraparound chance that literally almost crossed the goal line, and they actually had to take a look at it, but it was inconclusive that it actually crossed the line. So Hellberg made a really big save there, especially early on. Eventually, we go into the penalty kill pretty early on, and like Parker Kelly made some really big blocks on Ryan Suter, especially on a one-timer chance that he had. So the penalty kill was doing pretty decently for the most part, and Dallas's power play unit was a top 3 power play unit at this point in time, so it was very good to get some early kills against a very potent power play. Eventually, Dallas would make it 1-0 on a goal from Joel Kiviranta. It was kind of like a bobbling puck that got by Brandstrom's feet, and then Kiviranta just got a quick shot off in for Hellberg had no chance to react to it, so it was 1-0 Dallas at this point in time. Now, the Sens had no shots through 8 minutes of this first period, so it was kind of a slow start for the Ottawa Senators in terms of actually getting their game up to speed, it seems like, and maybe it was just because of the prior week being all these wins and scoring a lot of goals, but they were a little bit out of it early on in this one. The fourth line was doing pretty good though in that opening period, drawing power plays, and we had some good chances on the power play, but we did not create, unfortunately. We also had a couple of good short-handed chances from Matthew Joseph, and we had another good penalty kill again. And after the first period, the shots were 12-9. So even though we were outshot 8-0 in the first 8 minutes or whatever it was, we managed to get a lot more shots down at the stretch of the period and get back into this game, which was nice. So we were only down 1-0 after one, which was not a bad thing by any means. Hellberg was kind of keeping us in it in early stages, but then we got our feet back into this game. Then into the second period, our fourth line continued buzzing, and also Thomas Chabot got a couple good looks to try and get us back in this game, but we did not convert again. And then we ended up taking another penalty on Travis Hamonic, and once again we killed it off, so it was another big penalty kill against another really good power play unit. Eventually Tyler Seguin would trip Jake Sanderson, and we'd have a power play opportunity. We had some good chances from Drake and DeBrincat, and it was a good looking power play for the most part. And then once again we drew another power play shortly after that power play ended. Wedgwood was literally stopping everything. This guy looked like a god early on in the game, making some huge saves that were how did his puck not go in? Then we drew another power play, so this is 3 power plays in this period alone. And Thomas Chabot would throw it to the net and get a goal from DeBrincat and I believe maybe Batherson. I can't remember who got the other assist on it, maybe Kachuk. But otherwwise, we tied the game up late in the period with only 37 seconds remaining in that period, so it was a big late goal to give us some momentum going into the third period. After 2, it was 1-1, and the shots were 23-21 in favor of the Sens, so the Sens starting to get their mojo after a little bit of an early start that wasn't that great, so that was good to see. Early in the third period, Dallas had some really big opportunities from Jason Robertson, and Hellberg stared them down to keep it at a 1-1 game, which was crucial for this first game of the week. And we were getting outshot and outplayed pretty early on into the period, and then there was like no shots for like the first 4 minutes for the Sens, which is not good again. So we're going back to our old ways of the first period. But then Brady scores on our first shot of the period on a nice like power move, and that got us up 2-1 and got the team rolling a little bit. Stützle and Batherson would get the assists, of course, because they're his line mates. And not that much later, Shane Pinto would score again, so he scores in 5 straight games and makes it 3-1 Ottawa, and the game is now wide open at this point. Sends up by 2 goals. And literally not that much later after that, Derek Brassard would score to make it 4-1. So Brassard scoring in his first game with the Sens back in the lineup, which is awesome to see, especially considering Josh Norris is out for so long term. So this made it 4-1 at this point, and now we have pretty much the game in the bag at this point in time. Hellberg's still making some really big saves to keep it at a 3-goal lead. And then Dallas would pull the goalie with 3 minutes left, and Wyatt Johnson would score a late goal to make it a 4-2 game, but that was with like 2:15 left, and we managed to hold them off the rest of the way and win this first game of the week by a score of 4-2. So we were on a 4-game win streak, and this was Dallas's first regulation loss of the season, so it was a pretty big win for the guys to get early in this week, and a very good one at that. Hellberg got first star in this game as well, because Hellberg was pretty much locked in from the get-go, I'd say. Shane Pinto got second star for continuing his goal streak, and the third star of the game was Derek Brassard with a goal in his Sens debut. This was the first 4-game homestand that the Sens have won all 4 games in since 05-06, so this was a pretty big win streak to start off the year on the right foot. The final shots in this game were 32-31 in favor of the Sens, so pretty tight chances for both teams. And it was 50-50 on the face-off dot, so both teams were right even on face-offs. Okay, now let's get into our second game of the week, which was against the Minnesota Wild, where the Sens unfortunately fall 4-2 in this one. We made a couple line adjustments again in this game. I don't know why we did. So Nikita Zaitsev would draw in for Nick Holden. And before the game also, Mark Kastelik was extended to a 2-year deal at $835,000. So really good signing there for the Sens. And hopefully Kastelik can continue to do what he's been doing in terms of the faceoff dot and being a really dominant fourth liner. So anyways, let's get into the recap portion of this game. So early on, there was a fight. Literally 8 seconds into the game, Austin Watson drops the gloves with Brandon Duhaime. And yeah, that got the temperature rising quite early on in this game. It was a pretty physical game, I'd say, for the most part in this one. Somewhat early on, Alex DeBrincat would snipe home a goal to make it 1-0 Sens, beating Marc-Andre Fleury, so beating his former teammate from his Chicago days. And it was good to see the Sens off to a good start. This goal mainly happened because of a nice play by Travis Hamonic, who made a very good pinch to kind of get it in. Very aggressive pinch, like it could have went the other way, but it made it a goal for us. So Hamonic and Giroux would draw the assists, and it was 1-0 Sens early on. So it was a goal on our first 3 shots of the game, and also a little bit afterwards, we continued to get some momentum. Drake Batherson had some nifty chance. And a little bit after that, there was a second fight of the first period alone, as Brady Tkachuk got into a fight with Matthew Dumba, as Dumba kind of threw a little bit of a late hit on Tim Stützle. It wasn't anything dangerous, but it still could have been dangerous if Timmy didn't have his head up. So Brady came to the rescue, and there was another fight in this first period. So very physical period, as you could tell. Eventually, Artem Zub would go to the box for interference, and Minnesota, who also had a good power play, I'm pretty sure, would convert on the power play as a goal from Matt Zuccarello, would tie the game up at 1. After scoring that goal, the Wild would generate a lot of momentum and have the swing of things in this game. Then very late into the period, the Sens had a tough shift defensively, and nobody was able to go off on a shift. Zub didn't have his stick, so it kind of made for a lot of trouble, because obviously playing defense without a stick is not an easy thing to do. So Minnesota had a lot of momentum going on their side, and then Kirill Kaprizov would tip home a goal that literally Brandstrom could have played it a little bit better defensively, but basically Kaprizov was all over the deflection and made it a 2-1 game late in the period. And really late into the period, the Sens would have a very good chance to tie the game up at 2, but Alex DeBrincat got absolutely robbed by Marc-Andre Fleury, unfortunately, and Minnesota retained their 2-1 lead going into the second period. Now, the Sens kind of fell apart in the second period. We basically had a lot of trouble getting out of our defensive zone, and also we were outshot 10-0 early on in the first 6 minutes. So Minnesota was dominating the early parts of this period, getting a lot of chances on us, and it wasn't looking too good. And then Ryan Hartman would score off of a face-off to make it 3-1 on the 18th shot of the period by Minnesota. And this, basically drew open the game a little bit, kind of like what happened with the Sens up going against Dallas. Minnesota scores a couple early goals. Well, one late goal of the period, one early goal, and now they're up by 2 goals, and this game is kind of a little bit more wide open than it was before. Now, the fourth line continued to generate some momentum in this game for us to try and get us back in it, but unfortunately, it didn't really do much. And then Derek Brassard would take a delay of game penalty, which was not great, and we made a good penalty kill, though. As a nice block on a good chance from Kalen Addison, who's a really solid rookie this year. So great block there. They had a lot of pressure, but we managed to kill it off. Then late in the period, Chabot was stuck out there for over 2 minutes. So once again, guys getting stuck out there and not being able to change, which obviously caused us to be very tired near the end of it. And we were shot 18-3 at 15 minutes into the period, so we were just getting completely dominated. No sustained pressure, and most of the shots were not getting through to the net because Minnesota was blocking everything defensively, and we were just not getting ourselves back in this game at that point. Late in that period, we'd have a power play opportunity to try and get us back in the game, but unfortunately, we were just not able to get anything past Fleury because he was literally looking like vintage Fleury from like 08-09. Like, he made a save that he dove across that looked eerily similar to the one he made on Nicholas Lidstrom in the 09 Stanley Cup Finals. So it kept Minnesota up by 2 goals, which was crucial for this game for them. The Sens would get an early third period 5-on-3, and Thomas Chabot would make it a 3-2 game with a power play goal. So Chabot goals in back-to-back games to get us in it, which was great. DeBrincat and Batherson would draw the assist, and we're starting to get some good chances at this point, but Marc-Andre Fleury is still playing really well. We had a scramble play that nearly trickled in, but unfortunately it did not. Then Hartman and Brady Tkachuk go to the box, and it's a 4-on-4. Then there was a bad turnover by Matthew Joseph that almost gave Minnesota back their 2-goal lead, and likely for us, Forsberg bailed them out. Batherson hit the post off of a turnover to try and tie the game, and we were very close to tying it there, but unfortunately a fraction of a hair too much to the right, I guess, or to the left, whatever way it was, probably to the left. Eventually Matthew Dumbo would take a big high-sticking penalty late in the game with 2:36 left in the period, and we had a big power play opportunity. We had no timeout left in this because we already took out timeout earlier on, and unfortunately the Sens would not get really full retention of the puck off the faceoff. Like, we did have it, but then we threw it back to the point, and it unfortunately bobbled at the point, and basically they would get an empty net shorthanded goal with 2 minutes to go, and we'd be down 4-2, and the Sens would never be able to rally back in this one. We once again pulled the goalie to try and get ourselves back in this game, but unfortunately we ran out of time, and also Thomas Chabot took a really late penalty, so we weren't able to get ourselves back into this one. So we would lose 4-2 and lose our first home game of the season, and our winning streak would be snapped. The final shots in this game are 40-29 in favor of Minnesota, and the face-offs were also in Minnesota's favor, 52-48%. And Minnesota also had the advantage in blocks, and the Sens had the advantage in hits. Okay, so let's get into this third and final game of the week, which was not a good game for the Sens. This was definitely our worst game of the season. It was our first road game since we played the Toronto Maple Leafs as the second game of the season. And unfortunately, we fall 5-3 in this one, and it was, so terrible of a game. Like, I honestly almost wanted to turn it off after the first period. It was that bad. So before the game, though, Artem Zub was ruled out, as he is out for a week or two with, I believe it was a lower body injury, unfortunately, that he got in the game against the Minnesota Wild. So unfortunately, he's out of the lineup. Nick Holden draws in. So basically, we got Holden and Zaitsev in the lineup and the regular casting crew. Going into this game, both Tkachuk brothers had 10 points in their season so far, so it was going to be a good matchup for both Tkachuks probably. Early in the first period, we were very slow to get to loose pucks, and we could not get the puck out of our own zone, and basically Florida just completely dominated us in this first period, and our team just could not generate any chances. There was also some really bad defensive coverage in our own zone as well. Like, people were left wide open, and Florida was getting chances off of it. Luckily for us, though, Forsberg was locked in. Then on the sixth shot of the game, Florida would open the scoring on a goal from Carter Verhaeghe, as a really nice nifty pass from Matthew Tkachuk opened up like a lane, and basically there was nobody covering Verhaeghe, and he sniped it by Forsberg to make it 1-0 Florida. So some bad defensive coverage on that play led to that goal. Then Derek Brassard would take a holding penalty, as he did hold former Senator Colin White going to the net. And basically, Florida would go to the power play, and their power play actually hasn't been that good this season at this point. They were ranked 30th going into this game at only 8.1%, so they were struggling quite a bit. Once again, there was some bad defensive coverage, and there was a really good chance in tight for E2 Listerainen, but he could not score on Forsberg, so Forsberg doing his part to try and keep us in it. And then Barkov would score a power play goal, which was his first goal of the season, so basically the power play hadn't been doing good, and he hadn't been scoring. Yet both of those two things happened in that first period against us, and we were down 2-0 early on, and the shots were 12-3 at this point. Now, Alex DeBrincat got a good chance, but he unfortunately missed a net, but you got to put those pucks on net. Like, you can't just, miss the net on chances like that, because those are going to come back to bite you either way. Also, Sam Bennett laid a hit on Tyler Mott, and he left the game briefly, but then came back on the next shift, so at least it wasn't an injury, because we don't need more injuries at this stage of the season. We've already suffered a couple in the last week or so. And then Radko Gudas basically laid out two big hits, and basically Parker Kelly did not like that, so Parker Kelly gets into a little bit of a scrum with Radko Gudas, and they both go to the box. Florida would get a power play out of it because Kelly would get the instigators, so Kelly kind of shouldn't have necessarily did what he did, but at least he's sticking up for his teammates, which is very important for a young hockey team. Tyler Mott would also draw a late penalty on Radko Gudas, and we'd have a late power play with 42.7 seconds left, but that didn't really matter. Shots were 26-4 at the end of the first period for the Florida Panthers, and we were down 2-0, so we just got obliterated in this period. There was not a lot of chances for us, and Florida had every single chance. 26 shots in a period, I believe I heard, was the second most shots the Sens ever gave up in a period, so that is not a good stat to try and break. So very terrible first period from us, both offensively and defensively. Now, early into the second, the Sens would get some early goals to get us back in the game. Shane Pinto would get a power play goal off a nice centering pass from Giroux. Also, Jake Sanderson would draw an assist on the fifth shot of the game for the Sens. So we would draw back within one pretty early on, which is great, and also pretty huge for our momentum going forward. On that goal, there was a really great screen from Derek Brassard. So Derek Brassard, no assist in that, but he jumped out of the way to get that, get the screen on Knight, and that got us back in this game. And then not too much later, on the 8th shot of the game, Brady Tkachuk would tie the game up at 2. So even though we were being outshot really badly at this point, I think it was 30-8, we still managed to have this game tied up somehow. So we were kind of playing the old pesky Sens rulebook, is what some people were saying on Twitter, and it was a 2-2 game early on. Now, shortly after, the Sens would go up 3-2, but unfortunately the goal would be waved off because of a clear goalie interference, as Jake Sanderson's skate kind of clicked with Spencer Knight's skate a little bit. So unfortunately the goal would be waved off, and it would still remain a 2-2 game. That would have been our third goal on 9 shots, and there would have been a chance that Spencer Knight would have actually got pulled in that chance, because Sergei Bobrovsky almost got his gear on, the ready to go, and almost got in the net at that point, but they decided to challenge the play, and it was rule goalie interference. So Spencer Knight staying in the game, and the Sens still tied at 2 with the Florida Panthers. There would be a penalty to Matthew Joseph, and there was a really good shorthanded breakaway chance for Tyler Mott, but unfortunately he could not convert on it to get us up 3-2, but it was a good chance, and nonetheless he's had some really good shorthanded opportunities this season, so good to see Mott still doing what he does best, and that is penalty killing. Late in the period, there was a kind of a little bit of a scrum between Mark Kastelik and Ryan Lomberg, which ensued onto a 4-on-4 late in the period. And almost a really bad turnover by Thomas Chabot, but luckily enough, he managed to hold on to the puck, because he literally almost turned it over with nobody supporting him. And then late on to the 4-on-4, a good chance from Jake Sanderson almost got us ahead. I think Jake Sanderson was doing really well in this game. He was flying quite well. Mostly everybody else on the roster was not doing too well in terms of anything, but Jake Sanderson was one of those guys that stood out for the Sens in this one for sure. Shortly after that, there was a 2-on-0 opportunity for Claude Giroux and Alex DeBrincat. DeBrincat threw to Giroux, and Giroux went for the one-timer, but Spencer Knight made a very nice save to keep this game deadlocked at 2. The shot by Giroux was so big that it actually knocked a stick out of Spencer Knight's hands, so Claude looking for that 1T, the old patent one-timer, and unfortunately Spencer Knight stopped it. Then late in the period, Carter Verhaeghe would get the Florida Panthers up 3-2 with 36.5 seconds left, so a little bit of a backbreaker for the Ottawa Senators. and not a great way to end a period for sure, especially when you scored 2 early goals to get back in the game, and now you gave up a goal late in the period to go down 3-2 at this point. That goal was on their 45th shot of the game already, and we're only 2 periods in at this point, which was crazy. The shots at the end of 2 periods were 46-17 in favor of Florida, so Florida still completely dominating the shot chart and the chances, opportunities as well. There was an early 4-on-3 for the Sens to try and get this game tied back up. Unfortunately, we could not generate enough. We did have some good movement and some chances, but we just could not get anything past Spencer Knight or the defensive core of the Florida Panthers. And then Thomas Chabot would take a really weak roughing penalty. Like, I don't know why this was even called a penalty, but apparently it was. And Matthew Tkachuk could have been in the box for embellishment at this point, but he didn't. So Florida still led 3-2, and we had a penalty to kill. And Matthew Tkachuk would score on the rebound on what was the 56nd shot of the game to make it 4-2 for the Florida Panthers. But the Sens would challenge it because of an offside that happened way before, and there was no goal. So great successful challenge by the Sens coaching staff, and this game stayed at a 3-2 game for the Florida Panthers. A little bit after that, the Sens had some good chances developing as Shane Pinto and Tyler Motte had a nice give and go, but unfortunately there was a huge stop by Knight. But then the Sens basically stayed on the puck really well, and Holton fluttered it to the net, and it got through, and the Sens would tie the game at 3-3. Tyler Motte would draw the assist on that goal, so Holton's first goal of the season, and we had a brand new game again. With 5 minutes left, the Sens' third line would have some really good chances, and also Florida's defenders Radko Gudas and Josh Mahura would be stuck over 2 minutes on a shift. So the Sens were starting to get a little bit of mojo here late in the period. Unfortunately, late in the period, there was a massive scrum in front of the net, and basically 5 of our players all converged on the puck in trying to find out where this puck went. But unfortunately, they left Brandon Montour open at the point, who wired a slap shot, and it hit off a couple posts as well and went in past Forsberg, and Florida went up 4-3 late in the game. So another late goal against, which was not great. The Sens would pull their goalie in the final 2 minutes and take out a timeout with the final 1 minute 28 seconds. We had some good chances to try and tie the game. Also, Brady Tkachuk maybe made a little bit of a stupid play and tried to go through his legs to try and tie the game up, which that's not the point in time you want to do that type of thing. Lindell then gives it to Matthew Tkachuk, and Matthew Tkachuk would get the empty net goal as basically Tim Stützle fell trying to hold it into the line. And unfortunately, the Sens would go down 5-3, and that would be your final. Now, the final shots in the game were 53-26 in favor of Florida, and the faceoffs were also in Florida's favor, 55-45%. So the Sens basically got dominated from puck drop, and we were pretty lucky to get back in this game at this point. Even like early in the second period when we scored 2 goals on our first 3 shots that period, that was pure luck. And then the rest of the way, we just could not get anything else past Spencer Knight, really, and other than that Holden goal. And yeah, Florida just dominated the full 60 minutes. Like, we should not have allowed that many shots in that first period, because maybe if we limited the chances that they had in that first period, maybe we wouldn't have been so tired near the end of the game, and that maybe cost us in the end of it. So unfortunately, the Sens will lose their second straight in a row. So now let's get into my overall thoughts on the week as a whole. So I gave our offensive rating a B- because I thought our offense still was not that bad. Like, it hasn't been as good as it was during last week for sure, but it definitely hasn't been the worst point on our roster. I gave our defensive rating a D+ because our defense has been, I'd say, pretty abysmal, especially the last 2 games that we've lost both in. We've been giving up a lot of shots on goal, as well as guys like Nikita Zaitsev have dragged down the defensive court quite a bit. Nick Holden hasn't been necessarily the greatest, but he hasn't been terrible like Zaitsev has. And yeah, Zaitsev should literally be off this roster because he's like, I think, a -2 or 3 in the first 3 games he's played. And then I gave our goaltending rating an A+ because Magnus Hellberg was really instrumental in that first win of the week against the Dallas Stars. And then Forsberg was actually pretty good against Minnesota, and he was also obviously really good to try and get us that win against Florida. But unfortunately, our defense failed him a lot. So I give our goaltending rating an A+, but it's kind of arguable just based on the amount of goals we gave up. But it wasn't basically the goaltending's fault, I'd say. It was more the defensive fault than anything. Now, the top players I'd say for this week, Brady Tkachuk had 3 games played with 2 goals and 1 assist for 3 points. Alex DeBrincat had 1 goal, 2 assists for 3 points in 3 games. Shane Pinto, 2 goals in 3 games. Drake Batherson, 3 games played with 3 assists. He hasn't scored in a while. Magnus Hellberg as well, because that 1 win of the season he was actually really good in. He had 2 goals against average and a .935 save percentage in the win. And then I'd also give Anton Forsberg one of the top players of this week because he played 2 games. He didn't win a single game, but he had a 3.5 goals against, which is a little bit high, but the 927 save percentage is key. The goals against average is more based on because of the defensive core, I'd say. So that's what I would have our week is. Let's take a look at our prospects and see how they're doing down there in Belleville at this stage. Ridley Greig has now played up to 4 games. He's got only the 1 assist so far. I believe he has like 6 penalty minutes as well. So kind of doing what he does normally, and that's get under the skin of players. Kind of did what he did with the Brandon Wheat Kings. Phil Dalous has still only played 3 games with 4 points because he hasn't played in quite a while. Robbie Urventi's got 5 points in 8 games. Lassie Thompson's got 4 points in 8 games. Sokolov is starting to break out a little bit. He only has the 1 goal in 8 games, which is still kind of surprising to me. But he has 6 assists for 7 points in 8 games. Cole Reinhardt, 6 points in 8 games. Jacob Bernard Docker, only the 1 assist in 8 games, but once again, he's more of a defensive defenseman. I believe he's a +3, while mostly everybody else on this roster is really bad +- because of the fact they did just lose 8-1, I think it was, or 8-2 to the Rockford Ice Hogs last night, so they had a little bit of a rough go with that. Angus Crookshank's got 4 points in 8 games as well. Victor Lodin's only played 5 games, so he has missed some games lately. He does have 3 points, though. And Max Gannett has 1 assist in 8 games, but I believe he's like a -6 or something like that, so he's having a little bit of a rough time defensively. Now let's take a look at our prospects in junior and all that type of thing. Tyler Clevin has played 7 games, still no points. I believe he's like a -7 so far this season, and he's got like 21 penalty minutes, so he's been very physical as he normally is, but he hasn't really been doing anything offensively, but I don't know if that's really part of his game. Like, he's going to probably, if we get him to the NHL at some point, he's just going to be more of a physical defender than anything. Then Philip Norberg's played 11 games with 1 assist still. He's more of a defensive defenseman, it seems like. Oscar Pettersson is still dominating in Rogel with 17 games played, 12 goals now, 9 assists for 21 points. I believe he got named to Sweden's team for the under-20s, if I'm not mistaken. He's looking like he's going to be a pretty solid player, at least at this level. I don't know what he's going to be like when he gets to the AHL if he gets signed, but I believe he will probably get an ELC at some point in these next few years, for sure, because I think he could probably be a good goal scorer. Like, the Sens need, like, they kind of need a guy that could score goals consistently, and I think Pettersson could be that type of guy if he continues to develop at this rate. Then Jordan Donovan's got 4 points in 8 games. Tyler Boucher's up to 6 goals, 3 assists for 9 points in 8 games. Also, the 67's winning streak came to an end. Unfortunately, they won 9 straight games before their first loss, which I think was against the Peterborough Petes. Zach Ostapchuk's up to 4 goals, 5 assists for 9 points in 7 games, so he's doing quite well. Thomas Hamara is still 6 points in 8 games with Kitchener. Chandler Romeo's got 2 assists now in 12 games, so he picks up another assist, which is good. Carson Latimer's up to 3 goals, 5 assists for 8 points in 11 games. And Ben Rogers scored his first goal of the season. He's now up to 2 points in 7 games. And then on to our goaltending prospects. Mads Sogard in the AHL has played 3 games. He's not looked too good in them, mainly because of probably his injuries playing a little bit of a factor. I don't know. But he did not look that good against the Ice Hogs. He's got a 6.25 goals against average and an 867 save percentage through 3 games. So hopefully he starts to find his game a little bit more, and hopefully the team in front of him can play a little bit better defensively. Kevin Mandolese is up to 2 wins in 5 games with 3.54 goals against average and an 864 save percentage. So I believe his numbers are improving, but he wasn't also good against Ice Hogs because he played a little bit against them. Levi Merilinen's up to 12 games played with 6 wins and a 1.86 goals against average and a 928 save percentage. I think he's up to 3 shutouts already as well, so he has been really good for Karpat. And then Kevin Riedler has played 1 more game. He still only has the 1 win through 9 games, but he's got a 3.56 goals against average and an 891 save percentage, so his numbers are starting to improve, but he still has not a lot of wins for sure for 9 games. And finally, let's take a look ahead at next week's games. Ahead, we have the first game of November on the 1st against the Tampa Bay Lightning, who, as of this recording, are 5-4 on the season. I believe they just beat the San Jose Sharks in a late game winner by Nikita Kucherov. So Tampa is definitely on the upclimb, and definitely that's an important game with them being a divisional opponent. Then we're going to be taking on the Vegas Golden Knights, who are 7-2 on the season. They are playing today, I believe, as of this recording, on the Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. Let me actually check because I got NHL.com open. Yeah, they're going to be taking on the Winnipeg Jets today, so They have a chance to be 8-2 in their first 10 games or 7-3. Regardless, they've been a really good team, and their goaltending has actually been pretty solid as well, even though they have Logan Thompson and Aiden Hill and no Robin Leonard. So Vegas has been really dangerous, so that's going to be a very tough game for us. And then finally, we're going to be taking on the Philadelphia Flyers as Claude Giroux faces his old team for the first time on November the 5th. And I'm actually going to be at this game, and I'm going to be sitting pretty close up. Like, I'm going to be sitting kind of a little bit behind the benches. So you guys might end up seeing me on TV if you end up watching this game. I don't really know. But the Philadelphia Flyers have also been kind of surprising this season. They're 5-2-1, so they are trending in the right direction, and they're a pretty good team. They are coming off an OT loss last night to Carolina. I don't know how they're going to do the rest of this week, but yeah, Philadelphia has been a pretty good team despite their injuries to like Couturier and Atkinson and stuff like that. So this week I think is going to be a very tough task for this team, but if we could get some more home wins, that would always be good, because obviously we're a good home team. It just comes down to if we could kind of be better early on in the games, because it seems like we always have a little bit of trouble early in the games, but then we manage to sometimes rally back in them, sometimes we don't. Also, we need to limit a lot more chances in order to win these games, because Tampa is definitely going to be a tough team to beat in their own building. And in Vegas and Philadelphia, who knows, maybe they'll be tough games as well. I think Vegas will be definitely tough. Philadelphia could be a bit of a wild card just because of the fact Carter Hart's kind of inconsistent at times. So we'll see how these games end up being. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this week of the Snipe and Sens weekly recap. So, and once again, thank you guys for listening to this or watching this if you're watching this on YouTube or listening to it on Spotify. Yeah, next week's going to be an interesting week for the Sens, and see if the Sens could get back into this, because right now we are now 4-4, I believe, on the season. I think, let me just check this. Yeah, we're 4-4 on the season. If we could at least win 2 of these 3 games next week, we'll be back above 500, which would be good, but I'd like, if we can, to take all 3 of them, but who knows with us playing Tampa Bay and Vegas especially. So let me guys think down below, and we'll see you guys next week.